Hey, so sorry. Trying to adjust right there. So this is part one of my testimony. I want to start with a scripture, two scriptures actually. There's no how I'm going to do this or plan. This is a really rough outline, and I'm really just trusting God's going to pull this together somehow, and it's going to make sense to y'all. There's going to be a lot of things I talked about that are supernatural, and those that are having and struggling believing in the physical are going to have a really hard time believing the supernatural. So I understand some people may doubt, and some people may say that didn't happen or it's not possible. Believe me, I said the same thing when it happened to me. My exact words on one incident was, "That's impossible." It shook me to my core, and there's not a man alive that can tell me that God doesn't exist now. What I want to start with is Proverbs 13:24 says, "Whoever spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline them." And then the second one, Proverbs 22:6, "Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he's old, he will not depart from it." This first part this first part is called family. I believe that family is very important in all aspects of life, not just training and raising up a child, but even when you start coming to God or you've come to God, you still have a spiritual maturity age. Whether you're, as it speaks of in the Bible, a baby on milk, or you're eating solid food, you still need a family around you, whether it be believers, whether it be your blood family that's raising you. I was very, very blessed to have a father who was disabled. He had polio and post-polio, liver disease, kidney disease, epilepsy, his 90-degree curve in his spine, heart disease, heart failure, you name it, the guy had it, diabetes. I got to hear a lot of stories of him growing up, and he had a really, really tough life. Not only from those around him that were close to him, but just in general from all the diseases and illness that were striking him. One thing that I took from my dad, and I'll, for the rest of my life, have with me, is it does not matter how much you're hurting, you can hurt there just the same you are here. And no matter what the pain is, you still have the ability to get up and go do what it is you were asked to do. He couldn't walk without crutches. Well, he did at some points, but it wasn't because he was able to. His legs were very, very, very tiny. And I would see him get up and go to football games of mine. And I would see him get up and go work on the car when it was broken down. A man with conditions of his body that were limiting him in every possible way. Just getting up and going to the bathroom was a venture for him. And I never once seen my dad say, "I can't." I never once seen my dad say, "I'm not able to." I never once seen him use that card. He taught me from a young age, you keep pushing, you don't give up. I'll never forget that. And I seen people with able bodies saying they can't do this, they can't do that, and my dad would get on his crutches and walk out there and bust off whatever nut it was or take off whatever it was on the car. I seen him do things that I couldn't explain and that his physical body shouldn't allow him to do. And it baffled me at a young age. I'm like, how is that even possible? This man's arms are 3 times the size of yours, and you walk out here and just snap it right off like it's nothing. He started teaching me and telling me it's up here. It's where you put yourself. It's not what you believe you're limited by in your body. He says mind over matter. He's like, if you want to do something, you're going to get it done. And so it was instilled in me that I push and I don't give up. And no matter how much it is pressing against me, or how many people stand against me and don't believe, if I have that belief in here, you ain't stopping me. And I believe that was something that God put in my father to put in me, or put in my dad to put in me, so that way when I went on my way, as it says, when I go on my way, I won't depart from it, that when he gave me the message to start bringing this to people, the whole world could stand against me, and I will stand against you and say, God told me this, so therefore I stand by it. Like I said, I was blessed with a disabled dad. I was also blessed with a mother that had a heart the size of the world. I watched her take care of my dad and do things for him just purely out of love. It wasn't a have to or a need to. She married the man. She married a man that had a disabled body and walked on crutches. But this guy was talented in so many ways and could do so many different things and had so much drive in him. And that shows me that it ain't about this. It ain't about what you can do, what you can carry. That's flesh. That's flesh. For my mother to look at him and see what truly mattered and to see what love really was, that, for the longest time, was something that I struggled with myself. Because I knew there was more, but my physical carnal eyes wasn't allowing me to see it. When I was growing up as a young man and a teenager, I'm looking for physical. That's all I care about. But then I get with somebody, I'm like, wow, they're such an ugly person inside, you know? And it was a struggle where I started realizing that there's two different portions of people. You got what the physical is, and then you got who they truly are. So you got a lot of masks that people wear, and a lot of masks that I wore. And I loved my mom because she was able to see through that. She was able to see through what the world tried to destroy him with. She was able to see through this broken body and this broken flesh of what was truly on the inside. And she poured an insane amount of love into him and into us. I mean, the epitome of serving others was my mother, you know? And that, again, was instilled in me. And so I've got this spirit from my dad that was given to me to never give up and keep pushing, and nothing stops you. And then I've got this servitude spirit from my mother that was put in me, that you serve everybody around you, and that's the greatest pleasure. And I look back at that now, and I'm thinking about it now, and I'm like, wow, God really knew what he was doing, you know? I couldn't have put that together then. Now, they both did what they could as best they could. My Granny Fern on my mom's side was just a blessing all across the board. She had come to God, her and my pop, and their lives changed, and that affected the whole family in so many ways. She was always there to make sure our stomachs were full. She was always there to make sure our hearts were big. She was always there with a smile and big red gum and cinnamon gum. She was just such a wonderful woman, and she had this joy about her, and this you couldn't take it from her. It could be the worst possible situation, and my granny would have some quirky little funny joke to say, or she would have something that would just blow you out of the water, and she would always surprise me. And she was such a little woman. She's like 5 foot. I can't remember how, like 4'7", 4'8", something like that. But she had such a big personality. And her and my pop, I seen that same love, that two different worlds come together and they just click. I mean, they were meant to be together. I seen so many funny things happen that I'll never forget, and one of the big ones was whenever they had joined a church. I can't remember the exact church it was, but they had told my pop that he needed to get rid of the TV, and he just absolutely refused, hands down, because that's what he watched his Dallas Cowboys on. They carried portions of themselves, you know, as we do, and God doesn't say you need to stop being who you are and be this. You know, he made you to be who you are, and he's going to remold that. He's going to make it and repurpose it for what it is you were intended to do. So just because you come to God doesn't mean you stop being funny. Doesn't mean you stop being hard-headed. It doesn't mean you stop being this pushy person. He's just going to use it for the good that we weren't using it for ourselves. Like it says, his gifts are irrevocable. Once he gives it to us, that's ours. My grandmother Gloria, my dad's mom, I believe was the one who, from an early age, made sure that I had scripture in my heart. Actually, her and my Granny Fern both did this. My Granny Fern would tell me different scriptures anytime I seen her and give me little things that had scripture on it. My grandmother, we went to a church early on, and someone was talking bad about me or talking down on me or something like that. She overheard it. She had some words to say about it. And my grandmother Gloria was a devout woman, but you didn't say anything about her grandkids. And so during church, she said what she had to say, and that was it. We didn't go back to church. So we went to my grandma's house, and I would go over there and have tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwiches and watch Cowboys and Indians with her, and then we would read scripture. And I didn't particularly want to do that at that age. I was very young, but you know, tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwiches seemed to buy the bid, you know. So I'm eating them, and I remember her making it very important for me to remember John 3:16. For those that don't know what that is, it's God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son. He who shall ever believe in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. She made sure I knew that verse, and she made sure she explained that verse to me. Little did I know at the time that was going to be what salvation was. That was the whole ticket right there. And I wasn't wrapping my head around it, and that's why she kept pushing. That woman, outside of church and outside of everything else everybody was trying to teach and push, she made sure that I got the most important part of what I needed. And I know she enjoyed spending time with her grandson, and I know that it was a big thing for her, but she knew that that was the important part, that scripture was what I needed, you know. It wasn't the Cowboys and Indians. It wasn't the tomato soup and the grilled cheese sandwiches. It was that scripture. And her love and kindness is what allowed that avenue to be opened up for me to read that scripture with her. The rest of my life I went on knowing that scripture, and the rest of my life I went on relying and leaning on that scripture. Even though I didn't know any other scripture, even though I didn't read the Bible, anything past that, that was the one scripture we sat down every day and we went over, and she wanted to make sure I knew it. That was my tie. That was my, I believe that was my spiritual rock that kept me from floating away. And I would float here and there, but it always grounded me. I can't thank that woman enough for what she did. And in heaven, I love her, and I pray to God, and I ask him to tell her how truly thankful I am for that. I was not supposed to be born. My parents had a miscarriage, and my mom couldn't get pregnant. And my grandmother had tried to help her off and on with different things and ideas. And I remember my grandmother saying that she sat down one night and she prayed to God that God bless him with an angel and bless him with a baby and bring them I can't remember exactly how she said it, but I mean what any caring grandmother would do, you know. And she prays, and the next day I believe it was, my mom finds out she's pregnant. Next week, somewhere around there, she finds out she's pregnant, and then she prays that I may have a little sister that we can have added to the family, and then my sister's born a few years later. You can't tell me that my grandmother's prayers weren't answered, and you can't tell me that, oh, she just happened to get pregnant and it was just circumstance. No, God is not. God does work in circumstance, but that's God. There's no coincidence. Coincidence is something to steal the power and glory away from God. It's a God-given moment. And my grandmother's prayers were answered. And because of that, God blessed them with children. And I have a wonderful little sister that made mistakes just like I did. And she's on the other side coming to God right now, and I thank God truly for that. But that's pretty much the first part of this whole portion, and there's so much more, and this is just a brief couple part thing on my testimony. But I came from a very loving family, and I came from a very poor family. I came from a family that didn't have a lot, and so we had to appreciate everything we got. No matter how little or how big it was, we took care of it, because we may not know when we get a next one, if we even get a next one. And through all of the struggle and all the strife and all the hard luck and all the things that we've seen just coming our way, every day we got together, we ate, we sat down, we talked, we said our prayers before bed, we hugged each other, we loved each other, and we were there with each other through all of it. You couldn't tell we were a poor family just by what we spoke to each other. You couldn't tell that my dad had a horrific life from the smile and laughter he had in his face. You couldn't tell there was a lot of pain there from each of us, because there was so much joy covering it up. I thank God for everything he did for the family I had and what I came from, and I wouldn't want it any other way. That's the first part of my testimony, so I just want to thank you all for that.